all so much for coming. It's great to see everybody on this Thursday. Oh, gremlins in the system. I am here. Thank you so much for joining me this evening at the inaugural Speakers Corner in-house event. This one is dedicated to men's mental health. I have two fantastic guests with me who I'm going to introduce. It's amazing to see so many of you here, especially to talk about what is a really important topic and one that thankfully is being talked about. So we really hope that you leave tonight with a bit of education, with some things to carry with you in life, with a little bit of laughs as well. I think, you know, got to be some light with the shade, I hope, as well. And we also want to show you how Speakers Corner can help you share and bring this really important conversation into all of your work. So my name is Afua Hagan. I'm a broadcaster and journalist, and I'm also going to be your host for the evening. And it's my pleasure to introduce my two friends on stage. I have Neil Laybourn and Johnny Benjamin, and they're going to bring an incredible amount of vulnerability and openness and awareness to this topic. So I hope you'll give them the space to do that. So our society is changing really fast. The pandemic, of course, has given a rise to loneliness and isolation amongst everyone, and undermining our confidence, or the confidence that we had in our daily routines, and causing us to have a real sense of loss of what was dear to all of us. I think, you know, throughout the pandemic, grief was something that was felt by everyone. Whether you lost a family member or someone you knew or didn't, there was grief for our routines, grief for events that we didn't get to go to, grief for the way that we used to live, grief for perhaps not living without fear. And while tech definitely enabled more of us to connect, perhaps too much, I mean, did we need all those Zoom quizzes? It's a good question, right? Looking back, the 8th quiz was the one that pushed me over the edge. Not because I didn't win, because I did win. And that's when I knew it was time to unplug. But tech did enable us to connect more with people without traveling. But now we think we're getting back to life resembling something like it was before, or perhaps a better version of normal. But we still have stresses of work and finances, cost of living crisis, anyone? Societal expectations. And these have a big demand on all of our mental health. It feels kind of like everything's coming back to normal, whatever normal is, very, very quickly. And that can sometimes feel a bit intense. I don't know about you guys. But men are much more statistically unlikely to reach out for help, and more statistically unlikely to talk about what's going on in their lives, and unlikely to unburden themselves. So my friends Johnny and Neil first encountered each other in 2008. I'm going to let them tell their story because it's really their story to tell. But they went from strangers to friends, and they're going to shine a light on how important it is to reach out, not just in men, in all of us. And they are going to talk about the work that they've gone on to do, and show us what we can all do to make sure that our loved ones and friends or colleagues, or even someone that you may just meet on the street, can feel like they're not alone. And that's a huge thing. There'll be time at the end of this session for a Q&A with Johnny and Neil. Please don't ask any questions. I mean, you can ask any question, but I mean, I did win a Zoom quiz, so I probably will be able to answer it. So please save all your questions for the end. We do want to mention that, of course, we are going to be discussing some sensitive topics, including suicide and depression. So if you do need to take a moment to leave the room, but that's absolutely fine. Just let one of our lovely colleagues at the back know, and they'll be happy to take you upstairs for a glass of water, some fresh air, whatever you need. So don't feel no way about it. That's absolutely fine. So, Johnny and Neil, thank you so much for joining me this evening. Inaugural Speakers Corner event. I feel a bit special. Okay. Yeah, you guys look special. Okay. The best place to start, I think, is introduce yourselves to us and tell me about the start of your journey together as now friends.
Okay, I'll start. Hi, I'm Neil. I'm a man. You can't tell. Last time I checked. So yes, obviously we're here to, I guess share our story with you. How we met, under what circumstances, and how that sort of impacted both our lives in very different ways. And yeah, I mean, I'm not going to try and outdo the introduction, but just to kind of contextualize, I guess, how we take that into today. So we've been together, kind of discussing these topics for almost a decade together as friends. But once before that, we were strangers who met. I won't kind of met. Some of you might know us already through, I don't know, an accidental Google search that came up with us, maybe, or an intentional one. But yeah, so we just want to have a very authentic chat. Our favourite bit is towards the end, and we can actually dialogue with you guys. I don't want to give too much more away than that. I'm gonna let Johnny introduce himself.
Yeah, I'm Johnny, and yeah, we're all pleased to be here with all of you. Thanks for coming on this Thursday night. It's Thursday, yeah. It's just, yeah, it's been one of those weeks. So yeah, also a mental health advocate. Again, been doing this for about a decade now. And particularly passionate about men's mental health and suicide as well. And yeah, I guess to start at the beginning. I grew up in North London, had a kind of, I guess, typical childhood, I'd say. Grew up with mum, dad's older brother. But my parents started to notice that, I don't know, my behavior was a bit different when I was like 3, 4 years old. And around that time, I started to have what we call night terrors. Night terrors are these like really vivid nightmares that come to life. I didn't understand any of it. My parents didn't understand any of it. You know, this was the early 90s. We didn't talk about mental health at all, so no one knew anything. But yeah, I stopped sleeping properly, and my parents obviously took me to the doctors a few times, and then eventually I was referred to a child psychologist, and I saw this psychologist for a while, but again we didn't talk about it at all. I come from quite a conservative Jewish family and community, and we did not talk at all about emotions or feelings or anything like that. So I don't know, it was difficult. I just felt really different to all the other like kids, particularly at school. So I went to an all boys school, and I just didn't fit in at all. Like at sporty school, and I don't know, everyone else seemed really outgoing and confident, and I don't know. I used to hide in the library a lot in break times and just do my own thing, but it wasn't talked about because again we didn't. I was doing well academically, and that's what mattered to people. But yeah, I always just felt really different, and I didn't feel like a boy or a man, as it were, like compared to my peers. I just felt really I don't know. I didn't have a lot of confidence, and I was in my own little world. So yeah, but look, I don't know. I got through. Went to secondary school, and again, I didn't really fit in. But I'd say, to be honest, my real mental health issues started in like my mid-teens. I'd say when things became really sort of apparent. I started to experience really, really low moods, like 16 onwards. Like again, I didn't understand why I felt so low, and I'd be tearful, and there'd be no reason to cry. I'd cry, and again, we didn't discuss it at all. So I just felt, I don't know. I just felt there was something wrong with me. I felt there was something really wrong with me. Again, particularly being, becoming a young man, like all the other men around me. So particularly my family were quite strong, like alpha males. We didn't show emotion. On with things. Eventually I ended up, when I was 17, I started to experience suicidal thoughts and feelings. And I knew at that point that I don't know, I had to do something. And I secretly started going to my doctor and was referred to CAMS, which is something you might have heard of, the Child and Adolescent Mental Health Service, and I saw a psychiatrist. But it was never taken seriously. Yeah, it was just never addressed properly. I don't know. Doctors would just say, just part of growing up. And I don't know, never sat right with me, but I just was like, okay, you're the doctor. But I'd say for me, things sort of came to a head when I went off to university, as it does for a lot of young people. I went to Manchester to study, and I thought that was going to be like the big change and everything was going to get better. I was going to become, a man, but the opposite happened, and I started spiraling out of control and misusing alcohol and self-harming, and somehow I managed to mask it all. I don't know how, to be honest, looking back. But yeah, I managed to mask it to a point. When I was at university, I had quite a big breakdown, and I became psychotic. So I lost control over my body and my mind, and I felt like I was being possessed, and I ended up on the streets, screaming and shouting, and at that point it was obvious I was really unwell, and that's when I was put into a psychiatric hospital and brought down in my parents, North London, put into a hospital, and given a diagnosis of something called schizoaffective disorder, which is a combination of schizophrenia and bipolar, which was a massive shock for everyone. It kind of including myself. I knew there was something there, but I wasn't expecting schizophrenia, particularly that diagnosis. And that for me was the end, getting that diagnosis and being put into this psychiatric hospital at 20 now. I just didn't see a way out of that. I didn't see a way forwards. And I spent a month. By the way, the story gets better, just to say. It gets so much better. Sorry, it's but that's the reality. I was so embarrassed and ashamed, and I was also struggling as well with my sexuality, which fed into everything. Anyway, basically after a month in the hospital on what they called the suicide ward, which is a horrible name, I did give up. Something in my head snapped one night, and I made the decision I was going to run away from the hospital the next morning, go to a bridge, and that was it. Yeah, that was the only thing I felt left to do, and so I ran away from the hospital the next morning, and ended up going to a bridge, and then going onto the edge. Obviously, thankfully for me, I wasn't on the edge for very long when this young guy came along and stood next to me and started to try and engage with me. And that's a good point to hand over to. Obviously, he's not just a stranger anymore. To kind of.
You didn't say not so young.
Well, yeah, that as well. That as well. To be honest, I mean,
So, Neil, hand over to you. How did you encounter Johnny, and what were you thinking in that moment?
So, if we are, I guess, putting ourselves in that moment of, well, I know now to term it as an intervention, but at the time it was a chat. I found myself on Waterloo Bridge on a regular Monday morning, rush hour on the way to work. At the time, 2008 was a personal trainer. I can't sell anymore. So I did. I saw this guy sitting on Waterloo Bridge, obviously a very public place, and essentially walked over and started a conversation, which what went through my mind was just how distraught this guy was. Like, I remember, like, I don't know, like a wave of kind of like empathy. In asking the question, actually, why are you sitting on the bridge, which seemed like a very dumb question to ask, but actually, yeah, he told me that he wanted to take his life and didn't want to be here anymore. And yeah, quite instantly, like I felt a sense of responsibility to just, I don't know, just stand there, but without a game plan. Yeah, I was quite an intrusive, probing person by nature. So lucky Johnny that day, you know, when he would like kind of rebuff me at first, which he did. I won't repeat the words, but yeah, you know, I'd obviously like, you know, stopped what he was there to do. But yeah, I didn't kind of take that for an answer straight away, and yeah, like wanted to push about the hard stuff, and yeah, that was obviously very difficult. But like I said, I don't know, I just felt this kind of conviction I would stand there, and like that got easier, definitely got easier. Essentially, like the conversation itself, you know, again, you know, a bloke, I mean, we don't grow up like having empathetic conversations, so it wasn't, you know, it wasn't natural, but it got easier. And I think there was just something that happened partway through. We spoke for about half an hour in the end. Johnny, all that time, you know, still sitting on the side of the railings. Yeah, it just became a bit more two-way. I don't know, he kind of came away from that place of being quite distraught, and you know, the conversation just got more every day about, you know, growing up and where to go to school and that sort of thing. And eventually I started to like just feel, yeah, like much more in control. And there's a Cafe Nero at the end of it. We're not sponsored, just saying. Factual. There was a Cafe Nero at the end of Waterloo Bridge, and I said, do you want to go for coffee? And yeah, at that point, I guess enough, like he felt comfortable to step down, and we were about to go for that coffee, and yeah, the police at that point intervened, and that changed the dynamic of what happened on the bridge.
But your journey didn't end on the bridge, clearly. Johnny, tell us what happened next. You said the police intervened, and then you actually set out to find Neil. So talk to us about that.
Yeah. So yeah, the police intervened and took me away in sections, and I had to stay in hospital then for like a set period of time. Something, I don't know, something like just shifted from that conversation. It was the first time anyone had sort of, I don't know, really like properly listened and not judged at all, and actually kind of been positive. Like in the hospital was so bleak, and my psychiatrist was so negative about my kind of outlook, and I don't know, this guy was really positive about things, and yeah, I don't know, something shifted slightly, and that pushed me forwards, I guess. And it was a long journey from then onwards. It took me kind of years to I don't know, kind of get on track. I had a lot of things to sort out in my head, and yeah, kind of took all of my early 20s, and finally in my mid-20s, I finally started to talk and actually accept help and open up, and kind of feel more human again. And yeah, when I felt more human again, I don't know, I wanted to kind of try and give something back, help other people. So I started to get involved with different like mental health charities, and yeah, one particular charity called Rethink. They're a national mental health charity, amazing charity. Started to sort of work with them, and I told them my story. I've told you, and they said to me, you know, that incident on the bridge. I mean, wow, that guy that why didn't you try and find him? And I was like, 6 years have passed now. I know, and I was like, well, I mean, we didn't exactly exchange details. We're not business cards. So, I mean, to be honest, and this is a bit embarrassing, but I thought his name was Mike. So,
too. So his name's not Mike. Right.
Yeah, sorry. So I was like, I'm not even sure that's the real name. And they were like, do you know what? Let's just launch a social media campaign to find him. And to be honest, the campaign was about finding him, but also it was about raising awareness of mental health, and particularly suicide, because the stats, I mean, particularly in terms of men, just shocking. So around the world, every 40 seconds, someone takes their own life. And in terms of men, 1 man every minute somewhere around the world kills himself. I don't know, it is mind-blowing. And we're not doing enough, we're not talking about it enough. So yeah, we launched this search to try and find this guy, but also to raise awareness. And I don't know, we didn't know how it would go down, but we launched it on the 6th anniversary of us meeting. So this is January 2014, and it just took off. It was really surreal on social media, on Twitter. Started trending, the hashtag Find Mike started trending. I was like, I hope that's the name. But the most amazing thing happened. So within a few days, like 3 or 4 days, the charity had 38 different leads that had come forwards. Yeah. All of them saying, I stopped someone on Waterloo Bridge around that time, which is, again, it's mind-blowing because unfortunately, there's a lot of people that go to bridges in London. But, there's all these amazing, we call them silent heroes, like Neil, that are talking people off the edge and they're just going on their way. And so that just took us by surprise. But none of them matched up to sort of my account on Bridge. And we thought, you know what, we're not going to find him, but it's fine because we've raised awareness and that's enough. And then obviously, that's not how the story went.
So I think we've got a clip that we can watch now of you talking about it. So let's have a look at that.
Oh yeah, how about that?
When I walked in the door, I was just a bag of nerves. I didn't instantly recognize him, but there was something there. There was something that was familiar about him as he approached me.
I saw you on the TV. Yeah, I saw you speaking on the TV. Don't be nervous, honestly.
And then it was when we sat down, we began talking. There was a moment, and everything just came back to me. I could see him there on that bridge, and now in front of me, and it was just overwhelming. Oh my gosh, like, you yeah, now I've seen you, like, it's all come back. He's standing inside of me, and
He said, it's all coming back now, and I can remember your mannerisms, and I can remember your voice, and, I can see you.
you can tell, like, he understands and he doesn't judge, and just sits there with his kind of this big smile, and I think everyone could do with a friend like Neil.
Tell me, how did you get to that point? So obviously Mike came forward.
Yeah.
So I take it you saw everything on social media.
Well, no.
No,
Oh,
you did not.
So yeah, just I guess the context between years of us talking and Bridge and us being in that trip there. Yeah, it was like a really fond memory, but obviously distant one 6 years later. But I was still working at the end of the bridge in Covent Garden, and I'd had that daily commute work every working day for 6 years. Still even though, obviously, as you heard from Johnny, it was a profound conversation. For me, still, I hadn't learned anything about male mental health, this health epidemic we have in our country, suicide. So yeah, it was just kind of like I thought it was a quirky, I don't know, moment that it was just very personal to me. And sliding doors, we could not have even been here today if it wasn't for my, at the time, girlfriend, Sarah, in 2008. I told her about the conversation later that day. By 2014, she had no better offers, so we were still together. We were engaged. So she must have been clutching at straws here. It only took me 8 years, but I got them. So we were engaged, and the search was out. Johnny had been on Lorraine Kelly twice, national radio, Metro newspaper. Find Mike was trending globally. That one day that week, I was #1 above Beyonce and Barack Obama. I was bigger than Beyonce. He can remember my name. But anyway, Sarah saw the campaign. She saw the search. She showed me when she got home. Like on the way home, she called me. I was at home. She was on the way home from London. She called me. So it was through Sarah. And then, I wrote an email to the charity and said, I'm Neil, but I'm Mike. And so we got that out of the way. And then, what happened is what you saw, like this meeting happened. Absolutely had no idea, like the path it was going to send us both on at all.
And you're still on that path now. So you're working on championing people's voices in the workplace and discussing mental health. How did you go down that road?
Well, I very much was inspired by like this second conversation, the one that you just saw, which is part of that wider documentary. That's, I mean, at that point in my life, I'm like 30 years old, sitting down on that sofa. And at that point, nobody had ever been open about their mental health the way that Johnny had. And obviously then he'd gone through some sort of recovery and, able to just have a very different conversation with me than he had in the bridge. And even though there were people there and there were some cameras and stuff, it just like the bridge, it all just melted away. And we just felt like we were just talking like it was the two of us. And from one guy to hear another guy being so open like that without any kind of like ramification, any judgment. It was really inspiring because I've got stuff in the locker, I think all men do, that doesn't ever come to the surface. So inspiring. So basically I was like, do you need a sidekick or anything? I joined Johnny. We had obviously some press around that, a very feel-good story in, the news isn't always very feel-good. So that kind of gave us a boost. And, we were going around and just kind of like rabbit in the headlights, really. Johnny was very experienced talking about this stuff. We'll probably tell you a bit about that in a minute. For me, it was, completely brand new. But the charity were great. And, we go on TV and I kind of like be writing these statistics on my hand, and then it would be like just a mess of blue. And be like, but no, it was great because like on that journey, we were using our story to highlight awareness, and we were getting contacted back, and it was a very self-perpetuating journey. And then, I don't know, like a few years in, I was getting a bit tubby. I couldn't really do the personal training thing anymore. And we were kind of known as this sort of like, I don't know, like the Anton Deck of mental health. Like we just talk about it. We just normalize it. And it just stuck. It just fit. It worked for both of us. And I guess it's kind of still working today, even though it's, challenging times for everybody. We're still able to use our story to bring some awareness.
How have you found that workplace has changed since you go in and you have these really candid conversations with them? What kind of feedback do you get?
Well, we started going into workplaces probably a couple of years after we met, and yeah, it was the conversation in the workplace was all about like a very diagnosis-led conversation, especially like, you know, like especially on the male side of things, you know, when it came to, you know, suicide, which, you know, is very misunderstood. And it was all about like 1 in 4 people have a diagnosis, 1 in 6 people in the workplace, because not everybody in the UK is employed, obviously. So the workforce, 1 in 6 people, you know, and we're very much focused on like, well, you know, what do we do for those people? And there wasn't much kind of like consciousness about like everybody else, you know, because you talked about returning to normal. We just thought, well, if you're kind of a normal person, whatever that is, having a normal life, then, you know, surely if you were struggling, you'd reach out, right? So what can we do for the people with the diagnosis? And, you know, that was really, really important and, you know, great like awareness, and companies were, you know, changing their policies to help people with, you know, if they had issues. What's changed now is I think everything that we've gone through, we've realized that 1 in 1 people, right, actually a bit more fragile than, you know, we might have cared to admit with everything that was going on. You know, we'd never been tested like that. And everybody has a limit. Everybody has to, you know, take care of themselves mentally, and men and women have different needs and different ways of having to do that. And I think, and we know that, you know, a lot of men did struggle during the pandemic. And, you know, I'm speaking very anecdotally, but we would go into workplaces, have this conversation. I think the real magic was sometimes afterwards when we would have a quiet chat by the water cooler, and, you know, people would say to me, they might come up and just say, I'm so glad you guys have come in, because, you know, I feel like a bit of permission to go and talk about what's happening to me or what I've experienced. Yeah, and I feel like it's moved from a tick box to a genuine like understanding that like when you look after people, it brings the whole culture of the workplace to be more prosperous. I think there's been that paradigm shift, and that I feel is like what's happening now in the workplace. And storytelling is where it really kind of begins, because what people are trying to do in workplaces, I think the trend is to unlock stories within their own staff populations. And sometimes, you know, the way to do that is to have people come in and show you what it looks like and have a conversation with you. And then it gives people permission, and then you can start building your culture, you know, from there.
And sometimes actually it takes someone not within the organization to give people within the organization the agency to speak up about what's happening to them. And that's invaluable actually, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. We're so good at kind of masking, and we've built up years and decades of kind of like our masculinity, holding on to that, and not understanding how toxic it can be. And so, yeah, it takes a huge amount to break down walls for people. And look, being honest, sometimes the workplace is not the setting for that, you know, but we've had some incredible examples of where it just is that place, because that is the outlet for people, you know, going into that place of work. And it's changed now because of obviously hybrid working. So it's more important than ever, I think, just to get under the skin of what allows people to be able to be open, communicative, and talk about their mental health.
Yeah, definitely. Johnny, more recent times, you're in a published best-selling author. Congrats. Small round of applause there. Well done. Your most recent book is the Book of Hope. And you're also really passionate about tackling mental health with young people and in schools. So tell me about those two things. I know you've worked with Prince William on the Heads Together campaign as well. So talk to me about that, because you talked so vividly about you as a young person just not feeling normal, not feeling like a young boy. So I guess it is really, really important actually that we talk to our kids about their mental health.
Yeah, 100%. And just like the workplace, we've had some amazing kind of instances in schools where we've gone in and shared our story. And just a few boys' schools, actually. We've been to quite a few boys' schools, and I can't remember the name of the school. Do you remember that school? We gave our talk, and then this, I can't remember, it was like lower sixth, I think it was sixth form, lower sixth in a boys' school, and we did our talk, and then this young boy stood up and he was like, I just want to, like, for his whole year, he was like, I just want to tell everyone, like, I've been going through a really horrible time, and everyone's been really worried and been really depressed, and everyone, like, all these boys, like, started cheering him, and, like, it was amazing. Like, no, that wouldn't have happened when we were at school. So, yeah, it's so important that we go in and talk to these young people again, particularly given the last, you know, couple of years and what young people have been through. You know, we know they've been badly affected by the pandemic, and so we actually set up a youth mental health charity in 2018. 2018? Yeah, 2018. Again, like the years like mixed up, I know. So, but yeah, 2018 we set up a youth mental health charity because, you know, I'm sure everyone will agree, we just focus on mental health at the crisis point, and we want to take it back to like the, you know, the early intervention point, or even the preventative stage of mental illness. So, you know, getting in there young, people just wait till, you know, they have a crisis or they get treatment. So, yeah, what we do is we actually provide mental health support to young people when they need it, and also the right type of support. We try and provide the right type of support. Often it's a one-size-fits-all kind of thing for mental health, like, you know, in like the mental health services, the mental health system, it's just like, you either have this or nothing, like, and it doesn't work for everyone. So we're finding a lot of success with, yeah, like maybe alternative sort of support, like art therapy, for example. Young people responding really well to art therapy, drama therapy, animal therapy. So that's what we do. We put the support into schools early on so that they can avoid getting to the crisis point. But to be honest, I mean, I don't know. I just feel like we're in a really difficult period. I know people want to like move on from the pandemic, but I think for young people, I'm really worried about sort of, yeah, I'm worried about everyone's mental health, but particularly young people, particularly young boys, actually. We're seeing some really worrying things in schools, in particular in colleges and universities, like increases in self-harm, particularly in young boys, and increases in things like eating disorders in boys, and not just boys, obviously, but particularly this is what we're seeing on the ground. And so, yeah, I want to see more kind of action, not just talk about mental health, you know, particularly in Laybourn. Don't get me started on, anyway, yeah, you know, just not just talk, like, you know, it's World Mental Health Day on Monday, you're going to hear everyone talk about, yeah, it's really important, but we need to translate that into the action, into the funding in particular, which we're not seeing, but we'll keep pushing for.
Look, you two clearly a formidable force. So what's next for you guys? You know, you've mentioned working with young people and working on young people's mental health, but what else can we expect from both of you?
Yeah, okay. Well, I am completely surprised that we even were doing this for like 6 months after we started. So, you know, the whole ethos of, yeah, I guess like, you know, what drives us and why we do it is, you know, if it still resonates and if there's relevance, and, you know, one thing we've never done is we want to go into places and we want to talk to people and we want to get involved in projects and campaigns, and you know, we've started things like started a workplace mental health conference, and we started a charity. You know, the doors were open, you know, a few years ago because people realised the importance of this, so you know, jumped all over that. But you know, we never call up a workplace and say, oh, you know, can we come in and do that? So as long as people feel like there's something from our story, and there are many like it, by the way, there are many like it, you just don't hear about it. But as long as people still feel like, oh, you know, yeah, we need a couple of guys to come and just, I don't know, unlock in any way whatsoever, like we are going to, you know, be there to do it. It's really different, I'll be honest. Like I found again, we keep talking about the pandemic. It had a big impact on me because I've always been very ambitious. My career as a personal trainer, which spanned almost a decade, you know, I was setting up multiple businesses and employing people, and yeah, like I took that approach into what we were doing, and then it all got stripped away. because we were external. Didn't work for 2020 at all, which was fine. You know, we had the passion, and nobody wanted us to come online. Don't know if you remember, but you know, people couldn't even sort their own teams out, you know, with security and stuff. So nobody wanted us external people to come on. So it was a really challenging time. And then at the time as well, I had like I've got a 4-year-old, 2-year-old, and a baby, and it was just like that whole time with like being withdrawn, and you know, I kind of took it probably a bit too much, and only just now you know, sometimes I do struggle to find, I don't know, motivation, because you know, things change, and you know, sometimes you can't change those forces. So what next for me? I'm just really grateful to be sitting in the room today having a story, and my motivations are about what I'm able to affect in my day to day, you know, around the dinner table, through conversations, in the street, and family. And yeah, so that's a short way of saying, like, not much. Apart from, if you want to hear from us again in your own organisations, and that's just actually being very honest. And if you'd have asked me that 2 years ago, I'd been like, we've got this conference, and we travelled around the world, and we were involved in, you know, public mental health campaigns and charities. And, you know, that might kick off again. But at the moment, it's all there, but I feel like I'm not ready yet because, yeah, I've had a lot of, in mental health, we talk about life events, and everyone had the pandemic, and everyone had some of their own, and I had some of my own. I'm just getting back into it. But the legacy of what we do through storytelling, I hope as a duo, you know, we can always contribute if people want us to.
And what about you, Johnny? What's next for you?
I think, you know, Neil mentioned about, yeah, global travel. You know, we're really lucky we've got to travel to all sorts of different places and share our story. And now that hopefully things are opening up again, I definitely want to do more of that, because I don't know, something we've done quite a lot in New York in particular, in companies, and that, I don't know, that was like a different world. I'm generalizing, but you know, I feel like the UK, we are actually, I know it might surprise people, we're further ahead in terms of mental health than a lot of other places. Like, again, even New York, we went to New York, yeah, the first time we went to New York years ago, I was like, oh, everyone's going to be really open. I know that's really like, but you know, that was my kind of view of like, you know, New York in particular, like everyone's got shrink and they don't. No, I just couldn't believe it. We would go into workplaces and, you know, at least in the UK workplaces, people would put their hands up. In the New York offices, no one dared raise their hands about mental health or to like talk about their own personal experiences. The amount of people that would come up like secretly at the end, like wait for all their colleagues to go and then come up and say, oh, I've got this, but I can't tell anyone. And I was like, this is New York. This is crazy. Like, and that's not just New York, you know, other countries we've been to. So in Europe, even, like, do you know what I mean? It's just so I'd love to do, and I think you would as well, more sort of, yeah, international travel to break down the stigma in other cultures and, yeah, parts of the world. I think we've got such a long way to go. We're on the right, we're moving forwards, but yeah, still a long way to go. Like, honestly, I really do believe that some parts of the world haven't even started their journey into mental health. I mean, went to India a few years ago, and it's like that. Oh my gosh, you know, people are still chained up. If they have a particularly serious mental health issue, they're considered to have spirits. So, yeah, a lot to do around the world. So, we'd love to do more of that.
Expect to see you on a world tour.
Oh yeah.
There we go.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's almost time for the Q&A. But for that, I think we should see your best bits.
Yeah.
You can say how baby. Make a dream.
I'm Laybourn.
I'm Johnny Benjamin.
We've got a really busy day ahead of us. Just arrived in Belfast. We're now at Schroders. Today we fly out to St John's in Canada. We're finishing up in Facebook. Me, Johnny, and Michelangelo.
I overcame that adversity, and if I can overcome any adversity, then you can as well.
You really need to support each other, and don't be afraid to ask if you need support as well.
So we're in the last mile of the London Marathon.
Give you this. I'm very grateful, because I'm a person who could very easily have been sat on that bridge.
Like, as much as you should be talking about it, do you think, oh my God, I just want to get out of here? Do you know what I mean? How do you deal with that? Because you do it three, 4 times a day sometimes. So with doing that, how do you deal with it?
Yeah, I used to deal with it not well. Because I don't know if I was ready, if we were ready, if I was ready, maybe you are, I don't know. But this was years ago. I'm all right now. Honestly, I would like sob through talks sometimes. It was really tough. Like, absolutely go back to that place. And actually, talking about speaking, now work with a lot of young people in particular who want to share their stories and make sure they're ready. It's a lot when you are opening up, particularly around suicide. We meet a lot of, particularly now, a lot of people will contact us, particularly young people, and say, I want to share my story like you. I want to, and just want to make sure that they're ready because, I'm not sure I was back then. Now I feel like there's a distance, like a healthy sort of distance from that. I mean, I still, if I think about it, I can still go back there. But it's been a really interesting journey for me. But it's definitely got easier over time.
Hi. What I want to know is how did you go from that moment on the bridge where you were like ready to like end things to being like brave enough and courageous enough to kind of find Neil/Mike and like start to like advocate and help others? Like, how was that process in between?
Long. And that's the thing as well. Like, a lot of people again will say to us like, people want a quick fix, which I get. I get it. Particularly now in the age that we're living, people want. But time, honestly, it took years. It took years of having to get comfortable with the conversation, particularly around like family and friends. I mean, so many sort of awkward, difficult sort of encounters, and not just family and friends, with therapists and clinicians, and it took a long time, and it was tough. It was really tough those years, feeling like very isolated and again embarrassed and ashamed. I think we talk a lot about role models. I think role models really help, and again for the workplace, role models. So starting to watch other people share their experiences, like Stephen Fry, amazing legend, Ruby Wax. Actually watching them articulate what they went through, and going to things like support groups. Actually, started to finally. I don't know. I just got tired. I got tired of having to hide, not just my mental health, but my sexuality as well. That, both of those things. I just, and I think as well, looking back, people around me, I didn't want to hear it, but they were trying to push me, like, gently to try and, go to the support groups or go and try this, go and try. And again, time. It took time for me to finally be like, okay, fine, you know, I need something. And I think, again, a lot of people, when we give talks, they'll say, you know, how do I help my friend? How do I help my sister? How do I help my auntie? And, you know, never give up on someone in it. Again, it might take time, it might take, you know, weeks, months, it can take years for someone to finally break down those walls and for you to get through to someone, but don't give up. Often people will say, you know, well, I've tried this with them, I give up with them, you know, so please don't give up, you know, just keep on pushing them and gently pushing them. And then, yeah, eventually start to get the confidence and lose some shame and embarrassment. But yeah, that's a long way of saying time. Time is for me the key, and patience and support that, you know, keeps on, and people don't give up on you.
You talked about how you were really good at hiding, like that you weren't feeling great, especially in the workplace. I imagine quite a few people are really quite good at hiding in 9 to 5. It's really quite you can kind of keep it together. How do you identify what steps should we be taking to try and identify what should we be looking out for?
Yeah, well, we tend to, we tend to allow a sort of status quo, I think, in the workplace, you know, which creates, I think we've all heard of the term, you know, presenteeism, where, you know, address these things, like people can be, you know, disengaged, and that should be the reason, you know, to go, because they're not contributing, you know, and that's what we need to fix. But that's missed the whole point of, like, you know, workplaces aren't just somewhere where you go to pick up a check anymore. You know, they're places where people, you know, need to belong, and you've got to make it safe. You know, you've got a role model. You've got to show people that the conversation could be had, and, you know, there's no like ramifications, because like we're undoing a lot of like years of that stigma in the workplace, where it just wasn't okay. You know, sometimes you feel a bit of guilt because you're a male, and like a lot of that stigma has been perpetuated by, like, you know, we had like the pale male stereotype that has, you know, who's been at the helm of, you know, a lot of institutions and workplaces, and we know like that's where it's come from. Like, it's been very toxic cultures, but, you know, with mental health, it's in the mix with everything else that's coming with it. You know, you've got to look at every facet of intersectionality, of diversity, and yeah, you've got to give it time to thrive in a culture. No, the reason that I'm talking from this experience is what we did over a few years is we went into hundreds of workplaces, and essentially after we kind of like gone around and figured out what's going on, we brought those people together, and, you know, we would allow forums for people to like share and discuss what was going on at all levels. So, you know, advocates, people with the diagnosis, support groups, general people in the companies, the people managers, the leaders, the board. And yeah, it starts just to become a place of like, I don't know, a bit like, I don't want to compare it to stuff I don't really know and understand, but like you've got a Me Too movement. It just becomes like, well, it's just not tolerated anymore. It's just not tolerated that if somebody discloses something, it's going to be met with, you know, stigma. So yeah, I think, but you've got to be very genuine about it, and allow it to have its own place and develop its own culture, rather than saying, okay, well, this is mental health, this is what we're going to do, and kind of prescribe it to people. So in bringing conversations and storytelling in, hopefully it allows that to kind of like take its own life form and encourage people to show that you can just be yourself, and it's not judged, and it's not stigmatizing. You don't have to mask it anymore. So yeah, it's like there's no one fit solution, but actually you've got quite a good example of a tool that you used in the workplace, didn't you?
Yeah, when I worked for a charity rethink that I mentioned, on the very first day that I started work, they came round and they checked my chair for my back, and like, you know, this screen for my eye, like the ergonomics. But then my line manager said we're going to do what's called a wrap. anyone know the RAP? It stands for Wellness Recovery Action Plan. I've never heard of it, but basically it's like a thing with a list of questions that says, what signs can we maybe spot if you're feeling overwhelmed or, struggling, but then what can we put in place if you are feeling overwhelmed, struggling. And, I remember saying, I'll maybe avoid the rush hour, maybe coming after the rush hour, leave, before, after the rush, just to avoid that. Make sure I take my lunch break. Unfortunately, I did have a relapse at work, and but it was just, I don't know, it was so much easier because my line manager could spot it and put the stuff in place straight away that I put on my RAP, and it was amazing that workplace because everyone was so open about their mental health, because from day one it was addressed, like mental health, physical health was equal, and so people were so open. So I'd really recommend the RAP. There's lots of examples online, but it is really hard to spot, when someone is maybe struggling and mastering it. Again, Neil said about workplaces aren't always the best kind of environments. So taking that person out, if you're just, I don't know, just worried if someone is just doesn't see themselves, so taking them out if you can, for a walk. We know that, being side by side, shoulder to shoulder, as we call it, is so much easier than having to look at someone and talk about, difficult things. So going for a walk, going for a coffee, if it's online that you're having this, not on a Zoom or not on a Teams, maybe as a call while you're going for a walk and just, talking. But yeah, again, like I said before, not giving up, there's something, in mental health that we talk about a lot called ask twice. If you're worried about someone and you don't get the response that you think, is right, just go back and ask again in a really gentle sort of way, just want to check. I know I said it last week, but just want to check again. And again, they might not open up then, but then the next week, if you're still worried, don't give up. Yeah. Keep on gently kind of, and, eventually the walls come down.
One more question? Yes. I'm curious to know what you think or how you think it's changing the school way of things. So what you were saying about the boy that stood up in front of his class, the whole school, and sort of admitted it, like that wouldn't have even happened when I was at school. So do you find that that's been happening more often, or do you think that was like a one-off thing?
Yeah, well, I'm generalizing. I do think things are shifting with the next generation because, things like social media, I mean, again, there's lots of negatives, social media, but actually there's some positives in terms of young people are seeing other young people being open and honest and fighting for things. So we actually went to school together, me and Dad. Yeah. When we were at school, I don't know, I don't remember anyone having being really passionate about things happening in the world. But now, young people, they're so clued up about things and they really care. And so, yeah, I do feel like we are moving in the right direction, but I'm also, I said, worried, particularly again with the boys. Lots of them kind of, hiding away. Lots of them, not opening up. I remember we did a talk, I can't remember when it was, a year ago or something in a school, and I'll never forget, this boy came up at the end. Everyone else had waited till everyone else left. They always do, waited till everyone else left. Then he came up and he burst into tears and was like, I'm really struggling. And I hope you don't mind me using this. Well, I'm just going to say what he said. He was like, all my mates will think I'm a pussy if I'm honest. Sorry. But that's what he said. It's, it's important to be honest, I think, with how boys, what is being said. He's like, all my mates think I'm that. If I'm open about my mental health, and I can't, so I have to hide it away, and I'm really struggling. And so, that was really interesting because I was like, oh my God, wow. We think, again, sometimes we get not quite an accurate view of mental health because we live in this sort of bubble in the work we do where we think everyone's open, but actually no, we need to do more. So, sorry, that's a long way of saying, things are changing, things are moving forwards, but we need to do a little bit more. Obviously, again, schools in particular are quite keen to mark the awareness days, like World Mental Health Day on Monday. They'll all do loads of stuff, but then on Tuesday, that's it, back to but for a lot of, young people, it's not back to normal. So we need to keep the conversation going, lots of assemblies, talks, or You know, not just on the awareness days, weeks, months, you know, keep it going throughout the year and reminding them that there's support out there, things like Shout, the 24/7 text service. So yeah, again, making it more than just a tick box exercise, but we're definitely moving in the right direction for sure.
And that's what we've got time for, I'm afraid. I think we should give me and Johnny a massive round of applause.
I knew.
Thank you so much for sharing with us and being so vulnerable and talking so authentically. It was absolutely brilliant. And thank you guys for your attention. Thank you for attending. We'll be upstairs having a well-deserved glass of wine. So any more questions you have, you can ask us then. But thank you so very much. Thank you.